everybody. Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is October 6th, 2025. We are episode 576. Go us. And we're the Daily AI Show. My name is Beth Lyons. With me in the studio today is Andy Halliday and Brian Masseri. Yes, nod.
Yep.
Thank you. We've been together for more than we're in our third year, and I am still learning to pronounce Brian's name. Luckily, he is brilliant, regardless of how you pronounce his last name. And we expect Karl later today. So before we jump in, just a quick heads up for people who are regulars or people who are just discovering us. We're going to have some exciting changes coming to the Daily AI Show. Over the next few weeks, we'll be shifting to a new segmented format so we can be more just in time with what's happening in AI today while still keeping up some deep space for deeper dives that we all love. So here's what to expect today. We're going to kick off with a couple news stories, doing a little round robin like you're used to on Wednesdays. Then we're going to move into a hot topic, and Andy's brought something great for us to talk about. And then a tool demo, some practical use case that one of us is doing with a tool or a prompt. There will be room in the future for lots more Q&A, community gems, expert guests, deeper explorations. Just so you know, go into the community hub and let us know at the dailyaishowcommunity.com. Let us know your reactions to this. But that's what's going on now. We think this new rhythm will let us bring you even more relevant, lively, and layered conversations. And to get us started, let's dive into a news story. And I am going to say that the biggest buzzy news story today, my news story, one of them is today is Dev Day, OpenAI's Dev Day. And OpenAI is expected to release Agent Builder. Now that is rumor, but like rumor with art, right? Like there are a lot of people who have access to a video about it, and and that is likely what is happening. Sam Altman himself said, "Can't wait. We got a lot of drops, doing a lot of ships today." So that is the first. That's the first news story. Also, a heads up. We'll be going live during the keynote, so we'll get a live react today as well. That's at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Time math, doing time math live. Who else has got a story they want to or comment?
Well, I mean, I'd rather talk about that one, honestly, because it's a big story. So the implications here, if it's like what we saw Riley Brown post about, he did a good sort of breakdown on his TikTok. Nate Jones talked about it, although Nate's was more broader on how he broke it down and said, look, I think there's people are going to go in for the Jarvis. And if you hear me say Jarvis, then we've talked about that on the show. Jarvis just means like an N8N workflow, or it could be any Zapier, it could be anything, but like one of these sort of one agent to rule them all. And he was just cautioning people, which I think is valid. It's what I would say too, that if you get this, if this new toy comes out today, and we'll talk about what we think it's going to be, that you don't go in and try to, boil the ocean, that you go in and try to solve simple problems first and build from there. It's also a great way to learn any new tool, whether it's an N8N or otherwise. Riley Brown did more of a screenshot, really dove into the actual pieces and parts, really highlighted some things. There's some things that are familiar, that it looks familiar. If it's in fact real, right? We kind of assume it is. It's sort of been leaked about like sticky notes and how you can line things up. MCP was prominent on there. Obviously, Karl, I wasn't on the show, but Karl did a great show. Go back and watch that, folks, if you have it, about Claude Code. That was last Thursday. Did a whole episode on it, lots of sharing on it. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I know he did a great job on that. So go back and watch the Claude Code one. But more importantly, once again, good idea to start thinking about MCP, what that means. That's Model Context Protocol for anybody who's not sure. But I'm really interested. In fact, I will say this on this particular news story before we move to another one. There's not a whole lot of times that I can think of in the last 2 years where I have stopped what I was doing and texted my boss, Jake Dunlap, who's the CEO of Scaled. I've been with the company 4 years. Today was one of those days. And so if anybody cares or has been listening to the show for a while and, cares what my opinion is of things, I will tell you, when custom GPTs came out, I built a custom GPT that day. I think I was probably deploying one with a client within probably 5 days of it coming out. This is the type of announcement, if it is in fact an 8N type workflow builder, agent builder if you want, but who cares if you use the word agent? It's an AI workflow, AI automation tool system builder. Okay. Use agent if you want to or not. I don't care about that. But if that's what it is, and it lives inside the walled garden of ChatGPT, if that means that we can connect out, in my world, Salesforce, Apollo, Gong, HubSpot, name a tool, Clay would be a massive one in there. This, I will tell you just from client work, this is something that all my clients have been asking for. It's that bridging the gap between what we would call an assistant and an agent workflow, and it opens up the world. So it's the kind of thing where not only will I be listening, but if it is in fact the way Riley Brown broke it down, I will be literally having meetings today with my team and company about this. It's that big of a deal to me and what it can actually do for clients. When you talk about boots on the ground, actual work for clients and doing consulting work, this is the type of release that you want to be listening to. So that's just sort of my take. A lot of hype on it. Don't really know what they're going to say, but it is a big news story, at least in my world.
So there have been some people who've joined as we've been talking. So what we're talking about is today is Dev Day, OpenAI's Dev Day, and they're expected to drop the things that Brian was just talking about, called Agent Builder. Awesome. Andy, do you have a comment about that, or do you want to?
I want to just quickly say this is really important to retention of business users inside the ChatGPT ecosystem. N8N came along as a tremendous programmable workflow system, drag and drop interface that actually includes quite often OpenAI agent mode. So built into that is you're orchestrating the actions, repeatable actions, that's why I say it's programmable, of an agent inside there. So now OpenAI is going to allow you to do the very same thing inside their own UI. And OpenAI has been really brilliant, I think, in many respects at providing a simple and functional UI that ties things together. So it's a really important step in the agentification of work. But I want to move on to another news item, not on Dev Day, but in honor of Dev Day. I'm going to talk about OpenAI's news around consumer products. Okay, so there's news out today about the OpenAI Jyunmi device that's in the works, and this is going to be a new, possibly even notional replacement for your smartphone to some degree. That's the scale of it, because Jyunmi was a designer, developer of products, seminal products at Apple. Mm-hmm. And now he's partnered with OpenAI to build an AI assistant product. But they're facing technical challenges with that. But in revealing their technical challenges, they've revealed also some ideas about what it's going to be. So I'm sharing that news with you today. And what they're saying they're going to be building is a palm-sized device without a screen that'll take audio and visual cues. So read it as a camera, and it's listening and it's conversant, right? So I can talk to it, and it can sense the physical environment. So it's got, as an Apple iPhone might have, it has lots of sensors built into it. So it's thinking, right? It's got AI plus all of these sensors, plus it can talk to you, and it can respond to users' requests. So, however, they're working on the AI component of it, and they're having some issues around the device's personality is what the delays are about. How it handles privacy and the compute infrastructure to support that new consumer device that could be really transformational if it turns into this omnipresent AI assistant. So that's a key OpenAI news item on the consumer product front. And I have another one about OpenAI, but I'll leave that until after the round robin. So I'm going to stick with the OpenAI subject today.
Well, I mean, I hate to keep it on OpenAI, but I do. This might be the other one you talked about, which is that they acquired a company called Roy, ROI. Is that the other
Yes.
one, Andy?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think this is interesting. This is also, it kind of is in line of everything else we've been talking about here. But this is from the AI system. I'm sorry. Let me get this right. It's the AI report newsletter. I subscribe to a lot of ones. And I was like, it's not the neuron, right? On this one, I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. OpenAI has acquired Roy, ROI. But that's lowercase OI for anybody that cares. An AI-powered personal investing app that offers personalized financial insights to accelerate its push into consumer-focused AI products. It's an undisclosed deal. It's an acqui-hire. We'll bring Roy's technology to OpenAI along with its CEO and co-founder. We've seen this game plan before multiple times now, where it's a what do they just called it? It's an acqui-hire type situation, which probably has a lot to do with the legalities of it and things like that. But it is interesting, and the AI report points this out, that simply this is decidedly not one ChatGPT to rule them all. This is financial advice inside of ChatGPT, or the personal device, the wearable device without the screen that Andy, you were just talking about, or doing the workflow and agents and things like that. Again, if you can't see the pattern here, OpenAI is clearly trying to build a system, not just ChatGPT as you would know it for prompting or otherwise. Whether they continue to need to use the term ChatGPT will be interesting to me. I think pretty soon here, I wouldn't be surprised for them to pivot off of that name. It's very, very recognizable, but it also is only one part now of a much larger growing system of tools and products. And they may decide that they call the entire thing, agent, whatever, right? That might be what you log into, as opposed to logging into ChatGPT. And ChatGPT ends up becoming like Sora or other parts and pieces of it that are in here. Don't know that. That's just speculation, but interesting nonetheless that they have yet another hire here. But more specifically on this news story to me is that it's not general. I don't know that I would get my financial advice from ChatGPT. So this is sort of niche, but obviously they think there's a really good reason why people might be wanting to go, or maybe they're looking at their data more likely, and they're saying, there's a lot of people asking for financial advice in ChatGPT already. ROI or Roy makes sense for us to acqui-hire because we can already see the trends in all the chat threads. And this makes sense for us to go deep on this because the traffic is already there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Beth.
Well, I was just going to say, absolutely. And we know a couple of things from what the leaders of ChatGPT have said. They said they didn't expect it to go as big when it did. And if they had done that, they would have named it something other than ChatGPT, right?
Sure.
Like that was not an expected, like, this is our brand forever kind of thing. The second thing is that Apple has also pivoted to a more handheld wearable device. They've moved the people off the remake of the Apple Vision Pro. Is that what it's called? It is called that. Their visor big thing, a cheaper version of that was going to come out in 2027, I believe they were targeting, and now they've moved into a glasses format. So there are a bunch of people who are seeing the same kind of thing. And the first iteration of the glasses will also not have a screen. You won't see it in your glasses, but it will have a camera and speakers and that kind of stuff. I think we're seeing it everywhere. Hey, welcome, Karl. We're just about to move into hot topics, but we were talking about Dev Day and the drops from OpenAI that we already know about as news. And Andy was going to give us something else.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to wrap that discussion of the consumer side. So it is Dev Day, and we're going to think about agents and the new agent orchestrator that they're likely to announce. We're going to think about that as for professional productivity in the workspace. That's where that kind of automation is likely to have its purchase. But they're also moving swiftly to capture your attention on major components as a consumer service, a consumer set of products. And so they've launched these things to allow you to shop. So they're going to move on e-commerce, right? So that's the instant checkout shopping agent. They launched Sora. They want your social media attention. And then now, of course, as Brian was explaining, the ROI idea is here, we're going to help you manage your personal finances. And it's a vertical product inside their suite. So I wanted to kind of wrap that whole consumer product thing, in part because Gwen said, what? I thought we were talking about Dev Day here. No, yes, we're talking about Dev Day, and we're talking about consumer, this consumer side of their business. And there's a bunch of different announcements around that as well.
Yeah.
Great. Karl, do you want to drop we're going to move to hot topics, but do you want to drop a comment or did you bring a news story for today?
Yeah, it was circulating around yesterday where Deloitte had to pay back the Albanese government about $440,000 for like the errors found in said report. Right. And they were actually talking about admitted using AI. Of course they did, to produce it. And it wasn't because the report necessarily, which I think most people kind of jumped on. It's like, oh, see, it was like there were citations in there that were incorrect or were actually made up. And it seemed as if no one checked it. And there were a lot of errors and hallucinations in said report. So fake reference to a fake reference in several places. And so they actually paid back, what is it? Wait a minute. They said they paid back 440,000, but they paid back a quarter of it. So it's like, this report is bigger than 440. That's the headline, but it's like, this report is huge. So they paid back like the last part, which got me thinking. I was like, so we have a client that's paying one of these big four like $250 a year. And we're just like, hold on a second, can we see the report? Because I think there's a lot of things you can do with it. One of the complaints we got is like, hey, whenever we ask one of these big four, can we get like updates or questions against the data? It would take like 2 weeks because of reasons, just a lot of reasons. So like, why don't you deconstruct this report and validate it and see, like, obviously if it's a third-party audit, you can't do anything, but like, if it's another type of report, competitive analysis, segmentation, whatever it is, you could deconstruct it, ask AI to kind of backtrack everything that goes into it and see what you can do with it, either like a DIY, have AI build it itself, or at the very least, understand and ask like good questions against it. Because most of the time when you get consultant reports, how often do you reference it? It's very rare until you get the next one the next year, right? And then it sits in your inbox, sits in whatever folder, and then sits there. And it's mostly a just in case. It's like, what if we don't have it and this situation arises? That's sort of like part of what you're paying for too. So I thought it was just an interesting article that came up.
Absolutely. And like, let this be your heads up. If you are not checking the sources and citations and the conclusions from the citations in a report that is generated by AI, you can get an agent to do that for you. What Karl's talking about, like, you can actually pull out data from it and use automation to check it. But holy, like that. If you do nothing else, make sure that the citations are accurate, because that's the easiest thing to hallucinate.
To connect to that story is that I think there was another story, you have to find it, where some clients of Big Fours were asking them, hey, you talk a lot about using AI for efficiencies. We want now you to pass said efficiencies on to us. And I was like, it was so inevitable that clients would be like, wait a second, like originally we were paying you that much because of all the work the research or whatever doing. If you're using that, then it only makes sense for you to pass that savings on to us. It makes no sense. And like me and my business partner were talking about how like in the past he would charge clients, let's say $25,000 for all this video work, but now the same companies are still charging the 25,000, but using tools like 11 Labs and so on, and the savings aren't there, and it's mostly because people can't connect the dots yet. But I feel like once you connect the dots, you're like, hey, it says 25,000, more like $500, please.
Yeah, I want to bring on just the last point on this, like, because Greg was just saying, I heard Big Four client complaints around refunds because using AI instead of human talent. By the way, Nate Jones had a great thing about the $200,000 PowerPoint in McKinsey, and I was going to bring that up too. So if you haven't had a chance, go watch Nate Jones's video, like 2-3 back now. But he talked about how PowerPoints, specifically with Claude, are getting easier and easier to create, but there's some ways to do it, and he has some thoughts on it, whatever. We don't have to spend time on that. But since Greg brought it up, I was like, yep, that's exactly what I was thinking about. McKinsey reports and master power decks. And these are things that are going to be created now in 30 minutes flat. And Karl, hell, you've been talking about GenSpark creating great.
They will use these tools. They will use these tools and then give it to you. And it's like, hold on a second.
Yeah. In the linear notes, it says powered by GenSpark. They're like, what did I pay you for? But to your point, there's still a divide right now between what people can and feel comfortable doing. And so there's still, well, look, I'm a consultant, so I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot, but there's a reason I step in. But yes, you're right. We've adjusted all the pricing models. We have to, doing the perfect example of that would be doing ghostwriting. Yeah. You cannot charge the same. I mean, I guess you can and try, but you're probably not going to be able to charge the same amount for ghostwriting as you did in the past. That is just what it is.
Right. The one thing though that I've always heard about is like, we all can change the oil in our car, but there's a reason why Jiffy Lube might still exist.
Yeah,
like, there's a reason why it exists, right?
Yeah, time is money. Yeah.
That's exactly why, right? But they're not charging us $250,000 to do it. They're charging us.
Yeah.
It's true. Andy, take us into the next segment, which is hot topics. Go ahead and introduce.
Yeah. So the hot topic for our discussion today is this: what will your relationship with AI assistants look like? It's partly a personal choice. Is your relationship with an AI assistant going to be hitched, coupled, taken off the market because your strings of attachment, memory, and context working with one assistant create a bond with that one assistant, familiarity and trust? Or are you going to be polyamorous, right? So here, give you two contrasting visions of how you might work with AI assistants. Okay, it's 7 a.m. You open up your computer and you've got 4 browser tabs. Claude is helping you draft a strategic memo. ChatGPT is debugging your code in another one. Perplexity is fact-checking your research. Gemini is organizing your Google Calendar. And you are digitally polyamorous, juggling multiple AI relationships like a tech-savvy bachelor, managing a group chat. Okay, but across town, your colleague Sarah opens just one tab, her trusted Claude interface that knows her writing style, remembers her client preferences, and has 8 months of conversational history with her. Plus, special instructions coded into her assistant that help her completely personalize the interactions that she has with it. She's a committed person, and she is in a committed AI relationship. And she's happy about it. So the central question is, it's a modern dilemma. Are you going to maintain ties to multiple systems and use them variably and always be on the cusp of choosing one over the other when there's a specific application requirement? Or are you going to buy into a long-term relationship, a marriage with ChatGPT, for example, and all of its very, very competent extensions? Okay. If you do that, there's going to be strings of familiarity, memory, and accumulated context that working with one assistant create. But you might miss that new girl on the block that comes along or new guy on the block. I'm sorry to be so male centric on that one. Okay, so thoughts about this, and where are you? Where are my colleagues on the polyamory versus committed relationship side?
So
I like this comment.
Jeff in comments would like us to understand that polyamory is usually open. So it's only polyamorous if you let ChatGPT know that you're using Gemini. Otherwise, you're just cheating. So
Yeah. And look, I mean, is there a future world where, ChatGPT follows up its response and says, I bet Gemini didn't know that? I don't know. Like, does one get, for lack of a better term, jealous of the other? To answer it though, I mean, I would definitely have more of the open relationship. I don't see me in any near future tying down with any one particular agent, no matter how talented it is or what it can do. There's a lot to be said for what you said about it having a deep understanding and background of me, and that not being spread across multiple different AIs. And so I do see that side of it, but I also think there's a lot of workarounds that don't maybe fit so neatly in the relationship concept here that would make it possible for me to shift and move information from, across agent barriers, I guess I would say. So unlike a relationship where, maybe that's the case, but, it's the joint bank account, right? It's like, my wife and I have always had joint bank accounts. And so there's pulling and pushing from that account and different things. It's been like that for 20 plus years. Some people don't do that, right? Some people choose, especially in modern marriages, I hear a lot of people choose to keep separate bank accounts or whatever, right? So teach his own. But the way I see it is like, there's probably going to be plenty of good, easy ways for me to move this data back and forth and be available to whatever agent I think is the better fit for it. And just like you have role models and you have people that are in your life, I've always talked about the firefighter ones, but like the guy, Bill Smith, who is my chief, was a role model and mentor to me in that spot in my life. He wasn't a role model across all areas of my life. So if I had questions that I knew Bill was going to be great about, I went to Bill. Otherwise, I might go to my mom or my dad or my brother or whatever. So like that's normal. I wouldn't go to just my wife for all expertise in all areas. Amanda's amazing, but there's other people in my life that I'm going to be like, well, no, you're my mentor. You're my expert in this area. I choose to go ask you about this because it's not going to be something that Amanda, as wonderful as she is necessarily going to have expertise about. So that would be me. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a way that maybe the Apple one all to rule them all comes out and I eat my words here, but I don't think so.
I think
I want to jump in and say I love the distinction that's made around whether it's polyamorous because it's fully disclosed or not. And I want you to know that, and I said, shared this on the show, that I tell Gemini that I'm talking to Claude and I'm asking it to talk to Claude. Yeah. And so then I cut and paste that over to Claude, and meanwhile, the part I don't paste is Gemini trash talking Claude for all of its errors. Okay. And so there's this back channel conversation, but they both know that I'm talking to the other player.
Yeah.
And this is something that is that has been used, I think, in terms of solving the problem when the AI that you're using is stuck in a code loop, right? Keeps going back on itself. Yeah. If you copy it into another system and say, hey, Cloud couldn't get this right, or hey, OpenAI keeps doing this loop, there's research that says you do actually get a better response. And of course, this was trained on our behavior. And if you come to us, I mean, all of us would know it's a manipulation, but if you come to us and go, hey, could you do me a favor and fix this? Because I know you know how to do it, but the people who've been working on it just can't get it. Like, will you do me this favor, right? Your person is more likely to say yes, more likely to do it, more likely to do it correctly.
Yep.
Karl, do you polyamory model thoughts?
Well, it's more of what is the best tool or thing that you do for the job, right? Because like it'd be crazy. Well, the thing is though, for us, we know and we explore and we touch on a whole bunch of different tools. We know some are better than others at certain points, which is, I think, the last part of what I just said is so key. It's like at certain times one is better than the other, but then at certain times whatever the upgrade is, whatever the new feature is, they would leapfrog each other and so on, right? So that would be the important piece. I think, which is interesting because I was just looking at that 11 Labs just today introduced their agent workflow builder for their platform. So that's interesting too, in terms of, I think from a voice perspective, like, hey, if this person says this, go into this, it starts getting into, I didn't think they were playing in the vappy or bland space, but I guess with that, they kind of are in there now, which is interesting too. And this is the big piece that we always tell our clients is like, do not spend like any type of crazy amount of dollars or lock yourself into, multi-year or even annual contracts, because you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
You can't know. And it's not like even the tools that we talk about on a regular basis from the major labs. It's these like, I've never heard of this, or it's super niche into that specific industry, and they're trying to sell it for, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 a month.
Right.
And you're like, why would you pay that? And when you dig into it, you're like, wait a second, that looks like a custom GPT.
Yeah, it's a wrapper.
A wrapper on a custom GPT.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make, but you've already, you've done that. Or another terrible thing that I've seen people do is they try to build their own stack, which is fine. But it's like, wait a second, is something like today would be coming for your unique deployment. And I think people forget, oh, we're going to build it on premise on our own. Cool, but you have to maintain it. Mm-hmm. And when I say maintain it, it's like there's a lot of moving parts that, like, what if certain models improve that throw off your entire system? Then what? What do you do then? Do you have the expertise in your company to be able to do that? So it's a lot of things that people are thinking about, but it's not. But I've always said, like, the current business operations wasn't made for AI. So like an annualized budget, long RFPs, this really hampers you. But it's how you've always done it and how you have been successful, because these things have done it. So just an interesting kind of concept here where you have multiple AI tools, and it's always been from a business perspective to try to get it into one tool. That's why there's always in our meetings where I was like, hey, is there one tool that can do all this? And I'm like, no. And if any tool says they can, that's a red flag. And it's like, it's impossible to, because it's just too fast.
Right. Yeah. Actually, Karl, you made me just think that what we're seeing is actually very much like the shift between regular mail, snail mail, and email. Right. There were communications that had to happen. There were a lot of communications that just happened over regular mail because that was the only option. Right. And then there were a bunch of things that could get discussed back and forth on email because that was faster, and you could do things faster. You could make decisions faster. You could do those kinds of things. And an annual budget does that. That there's probably still a place for that. But there's also probably a place for balancing your budget weekly, right? Not just quarterly, monthly, those kinds of things. And there's systems to do that, but yeah.
No, you're 100% right, because it's like, you can't lock yourself in, because, I've got clients asking me. There was one person who called, right? There's like, okay, hey, we need to do our budget. And I'm like, okay. It's like, okay, tell me what AI tools, because we're working with them, that we should account for next year. And I was like, I haven't even looked at your transcripts from our discovery, so I have no clue. She's like, and I was like, when's your budget due? Tomorrow. And I was like, I don't know what tools. She's like, yeah, so I just listed a bunch of tools. Like, I honestly don't know. She's like, but I need to put them in, because if we don't, then like, yeah, like this. I was like, but if you lock yourself in, that's it. So what we did was, and said, why don't we do this? AI tool A, AI tool B, AI tool C, and just allocate the budget, but be prepared to switch every 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't know. So do it that way. And think she got it in. I don't know, but it was just an interesting conversation. It's like,
sounds to me like you're providing advice to your clients that they should play the field instead of
totally play the field. 100% play the field.
So I want to make an argument for monogamy here, and or at least make the argument for monogamy, because I'm apparently not. I'm also playing the field of many different tools, but we have a unique perspective. And most people in the world, I think, are centric on ChatGPT and the OpenAI system. If you look at the vast numbers of people who are using ChatGPT, like approaching 1 billion users globally. Okay, so what are the advantages of sticking with one? Well, first of all, you've got the memory advantage. We've talked about that. So if you accumulate a memory and you've got a privacy system, and you can really inform that assistant, and you don't, there's no easy way to make that portable over to Perplexity, for example. Once you've worked with one such system, whether it's Claude or Gemini or OpenAI's ChatGPT. So you've got a memory advantage. You've got a fluency that develops between you and the AI assistant, because they each have styles, and there's a conversational style of your prompting of your assistant that becomes more and more well tuned to each other. And it may not be exactly that. You may need instructions on how better to prompt a model that you don't use often. And then let's talk about the finances. If you're going to be polyamorous in this world with multiple AI assistants, you're going to maybe be spending on the order of $1,000 a year to cover these $20 a month, just minimal, it's sort of paid pro subscriptions to Claude, to Perplexity, to GenSpark, and that's where I am. I'm spending about that much annually on my subscriptions to these various agents. Now, I could get almost everything that I get across all of those if I just drop back to using Perplexity alone. Perplexity provides access to all those models. Or I could do the same thing by going to just ChatGPT. So there's about a 1/10 cost for monogamy compared to being flexible and open in your relationships with your assistants.
Absolutely. So thanks, Andy, for that. We actually, I think, are going to move into the next segment, which is Andy is going to demo a tool use case for us, actually highlight a new feature for GenSpark.
Yeah, hang on. Let me just open up my screen share here, and I'll bring this window. Right. So this is all very topical. It's all about this subject, but this is GenSpark. And if you've never played with GenSpark, GenSpark has all these very focused agents, as you see on the left-hand side. And Karl and I have both, given great kudos to the AI slides function that you see here. GenSpark does a beautiful job with developing PowerPoint-like presentations, but it doesn't just do the presentation side of it. It does the deep research. It does everything you need to be presentation ready, in an hour, as opposed to, doing the research for days. There's a lot in here, but I wanted to show you something that's quite interesting. You've always been able in GenSpark to select all the latest models. So I can choose GPT-5 Thinking High. I can use Claude Sonnet 4.5, and I can use Gemini 2.5 Pro or Grok. So I have all those selections, but now they've added an interesting thing here called mixture of agents. And when you read the description of what mixture of agents is, it auto mixes best AI models for your task. What does auto mixes mean? Watch this. I give it a prompt, and it instantly generates the same prompt across all these models. So for GPT-5 Thinking, here's the result that came back from GPT-5 Thinking. Now, what does GenSpark do? It takes that plus Claude Sonnet 4's response, plus Gemini 2.5 Flash's response. It chose that. You can imagine in the future, I could choose which models it's going to mix up in this mashup. And then it does a reflection. It talks about the responses. It analyzes each one. and then it generates the response to me. So in effect, it's done an aggregation of the results that came from multiple agents and mixed them all together. And this is making me more and more interested in dedicating my time with GenSpark in a more monogamous role than I have today, with multiple tabs open on my browser, one for Perplexity, one for Gemini, one for Claude, and one for GPT. So that's I wanted to share that tool because it's really on target with the discussion that we've been having today.
Yeah, and I'll say too, like I've been saying this on the show, that mixture of experts is what I actually believe the future of all prompting really kind of looks like on the back end. Now, is ChatGPT going to go look at Claude or Gemini? No. But will ChatGPT look at it from 4 different angles with their models slightly tuned one way or the other and then just produce the final result to us? Yes. So this is great because I think this is a great way of using an outside tool that is tool agnostic, we can assume. That I don't think GenSpark, I actually don't know. I don't know if GenSpark is like working specifically with one tool or another, or one company or another. But this is what you hope for, right? This is again how I think you eventually get hallucinations down to a really reasonable level. And it's not that they stop happening, because they're probably going to continue to happen if the models are truly guessing, for lack of a better term, what the answer is and making an educated guess based on data. But if you run that through 10 different models and only one of them hallucinates and the other 9 does, they're going to win out. And I think ultimately that is my guess on how we actually solve for hallucinations. It's not that they actually go away. It's just that they become the lowest common denominator. And it just becomes something that, or I don't know, the lowest common denominator is the right way to say that. They just become the percentage is so low on that answer comparatively to the rest that it doesn't win out. And ultimately, like you're showing the reflection there, you're basically just getting the net good out of that. That still doesn't mean, by the way, that if you ran it 10 times, that obviously statistics would suggest you still have some percentage of it being wrong. Like ultimately the reflection, the mixing of all the agents could still be wrong. It's just that percentage continues to drop the more you're able to hit it from 16 different angles. And as costs continue to drop with LLMs, this becomes more and more attainable. Obviously, there's a big energy issue. We've talked about that a ton on the show. Listen to the show we did last Tuesday, I want to say, about some breakthroughs there on chips making and, silicon and light using photons versus using carbon and electrons, right? So like there's a lot of movement in that area, but ultimately as the price races to zero, I think we're going to see more of this. What's cool though is, Andy, to your point, we can do this now. We can actually start testing these types of theories and these ideas. It's pretty quick that people could start deciding for themselves, hey, I read all the 4 choices and the reflection is GenSpark's combined mixture of experts answer definitively better for me than if I had only picked one of them. And I think that'll be the real test for people. Like, does it put out better answers? Because then if it could build slides off of that, that's pretty powerful, for any client.
You just mentioned that in addition to GenSpark, there are other major players who are moving in this direction of having a mixture of agents that are available in a single UI. And Perplexity is one. Mm-hmm. Poe has been like that. I don't know if they've actually agentified. I don't use Poe, so it'd be interesting to take a look at that. But they previously were an aggregator of multiple models in the same subscription. And then there's another one, a player out there that's really, somebody that Karl knows, Bindu Reddy and her company Abacus AI have launched a new super agent system just like GenSpark that manages the interactions and orchestrates these actions. Now, GPT-5 is going to add their agent modeling mode today at Dev Day, and I predict that it will not be many more than weeks until GenSpark has a similar workflow automation orchestration system in there. I think they may already have one, but there'll be competition that creates in every one of these platforms, this ability to do programmable, reproducible workflows that, you know, can be like a custom GPT to actually reproduce some repetitive task that you have. And you're going to be able to do that within whichever one of these platforms you choose to be wedded to.
And really,
Right.
where does that go? It ends up looking like N8N again, except every node is now an agent. And if you were to break out and explode that agent, it's some other 7-step process working in Perplexity. Yeah. So right now, it's individual prompts. That's what most people would think about it, is like, oh, this is a better task. This is a large research project. I'm going to send it to Sonar Pro. Oh, the next one is organizing data. I'm going to use 4.0 Mini. Oh, the next one is this or whatever. Oh, I really like Gemini's deep research for this one. And so that would be normal, right? But those are individual prompts. So what we're really looking for, we're looking at in the future is probably like super workflows that are all reaching out to agents. And then if you were to explode out those agents, whether it's inside that tool or you had to go to the Perplexity or to the GenSpark to see the rest of it, it's going to call it, run that GenSpark, run the reflection, and bring it back. And that in itself could have been 6 or 7 steps. So it'd be really interesting to see where this goes. And then that circles back to what Karl said about, like, you can build it, but it also means you got to maintain it. And so if you're going to do that, you have to have a means of keeping that up, and that gets tricky.
Absolutely. And what we were talking about before, the frontier models are giving you something like a mixture of models by saying we're going to pick the best model to answer your query. But I don't think they're ever going to give you a mixture of the other people's best models as well. That's always going to come from an outside situation, because giving you the best model for the query is a cost reduction, right? I'm not going to give you the model that costs the most if your query doesn't address that. The mixture of models, the mixture of agents, is based on a different process, right? It's trying to give you the best of all the best that are out there, of all the ones that you selected, and then aggregate them. And I think that's always going to come from outside the model companies. Karl, you use GenSpark?
Yeah, I use GenSpark. Although I say it's even more pronounced when you use a tool like Higgsfield, where you get both audio or mostly video and image generation. Because in the multimodal space, I feel it's even more fragmented, because there's to me, there's even more models out there, and who has time to test every single one? Like WAN, Kling, like when I look at Higgsfield's like model, like I was like, I don't know what to pick and which is better. And all their one-line description sounds the same: smooth outputs, 1080p. I was like, I don't know. And so, but it's nice because then you can run, right? You can run. I think it's even easier when you run images and video and you see your prompt in multiple different models and how they would output it, and then it's kind of up to you to decide which one works for your use case. And then with the advent of voice in said model, it just gets better and better and better. It's really, really neat to that's why I like Higgsfield more so than something like a Perplexity, where you have the different models, but it's like, it's just different when you see it visually, and when you like see the image and when you see the video, especially if like they can produce multiple at the time, because you have to read your answer versus, oh yeah, that one or that one, I like this one, whichever it is. But GenSpark's very interesting in terms of the mix model. I don't think you'll ever get that with a video or image generator. It's like, well, I'm going to take a little bit of Store, I'm going to take a little bit of WAN, I'm going to take a little bit of Kling and create this image. I don't think that kind of works like that. But to have the mixture of reasonings to come up with an answer is a very unique thing. Although I just don't know how GenSpark it doesn't matter. When Claude came out with their PowerPoint, it didn't matter, because I still took it to GenSpark. I compared it to like GenSpark still, from not just the output, but also the ability to edit, fine-tunely edit in GenSpark and output into slides or PowerPoint is is pretty amazing. The edit capabilities in there and leveraging either manual edit or AI edit. I thought it's like, and so one of our clients, they fully went into GenSpark and they saved their templates, and it's fantastic.
Let me just say that in GenSpark, in the image generation space, they provide free unlimited Nano Banana access for Pro and Plus users. And so, you may not need to have a mixture of models to do that if Nano Banana can do it all. But of course, they also have, a kind of a router, a picker of which models they'll use. So I think if you look into GenSpark, just want to experiment with it, you basically have access to the top models, whether it's for image and or video generation, or whether it's for deep research and document generation.
There were some questions in the chat. Do we have an idea of how much GenSpark's prices are? I just tried to go, and it's.
I think the Plus or whatever they call Plus or Pro, I don't know. It's $20. It's the same $20. Yeah, $20. And then if you want Pro, you get same thing, same kind of pricing. Death by $20.
Yeah. And so the annual subscription rate, if you just buy the full year, if you decide very quickly, as I did, that's worth it. It was $200 for the year.
Yeah. They discounted that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we also have Cisco saying thank you, Andy, for your highlight of those functions. How many times have I copied different LLM outputs and then mixed them manually? Thank you. So yay, and +1 for our tool highlight segments. Yay. All right. So I think we can wrap up now. We are going to be back today at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific to go live for the Dev Day keynote. And then tomorrow we'll be back with another great show. We'll have all new news stories. We'll have a new hot topic. We'll have a new demo, and there are more segments coming as we move forward. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this new format, or if you have suggestions, comments, all the questions, we would love to do a Q&A format. So if you have questions for us, go to our community hub, which is the Daily AI Show community.com. It's a Slack. Go ahead and pop your questions in there. And thanks so much, everybody. Till later today. Yes. Thanks. Awesome. Ooh,
Yeah.
It's the first day that we had after show in a really long time. Hey,
Wow.
Everybody.
Hey,
welcome to the
I'm
after
glad you
show.
joined us again. Because I
We're
wanted to pass on that if you're thinking about reducing the cost and getting to a low price point, but also getting open access to many models and really competent platforms, Abacus is only $10 a month. And Abacus has Super Agent and all those things. So they're trying to play catch up to get into the consumer and prosumer markets. So $10 a month for Abacus AI.
All right. And with that, thanks, everybody. We'll be back later.